Hello, everyone. My name's Jose. I'm here from RivianTrackr, and welcome to this thing that we're doing. It's a video thing. We've never done this, but I've invited some friends and guests to talk about the awesome Rivian R2 and R3 unveil event that all of us in this chat and this video got to go and do in person. So, first off, you probably know me. I'm Jose. I run the RivianTrackr site and accounts. We have David, the owner and founder of Emerald City Rivian Club. Hi, David.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Live from his Rivian R1T.
That's correct. Currently charging. Yeah.
Nice. We have Steve over there with the fancy headphones. Steve co-runs Soonish.com. They make awesome Rivian accessories. You've probably seen me advertise their stuff, and we'll definitely leave a link in the show notes below on where you can pick up some stuff. Hey, Steve.
How you doing? Thanks for having me, dude.
Of course. Next, we got Conundrum or Sapan. Is that correct?
Sapan.
And I don't know how to introduce you, but welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, we have Kevin, my friend and fellow neighbor, lives just a few minutes from me. And Kevin is an EV enthusiast. He has a Model 3, a Model Y, and an R1S, and maybe an R1T in the near future is the hopes.
Yeah, I hope so. Good to see everybody. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, welcome so much. We're going to keep this pretty casual. I mean, nothing crazy here. I think the point of this is we all got to go over to Laguna Beach. We were invited by Rivian to go out there and check out the R2, the Rivian R2 unveiling. And but not only that, we got a lot of surprises out of that as well. A quick recap: Rivian unveiled the Rivian R2, the new, more affordable baby to the R1S. We'll get into that a little bit more. They then unveiled, they did a couple of one more things. They pulled a Tim Cook, Steve Jobs thing here and unveiled one more thing. Actually, it was two more things, but the R3, the smaller hatchback sibling to the R2, and then the R3X, which is a more capable performance version of the R3. So we'll kind of get started. I figured we can just kind of start with the general event and R2 unveiling and just kind of go from there. So who wants to kick it off on this?
I'll jump in.
Okay. Yeah, let's go.
I mean, you just want to go by general feel, what we got out of it and how it went out, or?
Yeah. Let's talk general event feels, and then we'll kind of get into the specifics of it. But in terms of like what it felt like to be there, how we think Rivian as a general hosted the event, how they did, and then we'll get into the more vehicle specific stuff.
I'm going to talk about the contrast to how we've seen other events like this, like with Tesla. This felt much more centered around the idea of people adopting EVs. Like, it was more centered towards, hey, look, we're trying to get as many people as possible into an EV for a better future. Whereas it felt like, especially like at the Cybertruck reveal, it felt very combative. It felt like as if they were trying to go out and prove that their truck was the baddest, and that's why you need to buy it, versus it's, trying to get people to join in. Does that make sense? It felt more like, welcoming. It was like, we're here. Here's all these different variants that we're going to offer because one of these will fit your lifestyle, your wants, your desires. And I thought that was an interesting take by Rivian.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I did not get a chance to go to the Cybertruck unveil, but I did watch it online, and I would agree with what you said, right? In general, right? No offense to the Cybertruck, but it's a different vehicle, right? Looking at Rivian, it's clear that what Rivian wanted to accomplish here was, hey guys, we are going to make vehicles that everybody can afford, that are going to be different lifestyle vehicles, and everybody's welcome to be part of this family. Whether you're someone who's driven an EV before or has never driven an EV before. And so that was a really good experience. It felt welcoming. To say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, and even the vibe the entire time there was incredibly positive. Like if you talk to any of the engineers, the designers, the social media, the news, like everyone there was pumped up, very positive about what they were seeing. It felt like, I don't know. For me, it felt more like I was around peers the whole time, and I was just wanting to take part in it. And it felt much more geared towards, people that in general want to be a part of EVs.
Yeah, and I think RJ has said this in the past, but there is a space for all electric vehicles. They each have kind of their place, and there's a space for all of it. So I think like nothing against other EV reveals, but this, like you said, felt very community driven and passionate. And to have some of us in this chat who represent some communities of I mean with all of the community hosts there were thousands and thousands of owners represented, and so to kind of bring in not only the media but also people from the community, it really shows that Rivian is kind of on point with their crowd and with their owners, and aren't just trying to play towards one audience or another, but are trying to make this accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
And I would jump in obviously to echo all that, but I took the chance to fly across the country to see R2. I actually wasn't privileged to have a guaranteed entry, but I knew there was an opportunity to see it because of the public viewing at night that I RSVP'd for and whatnot. But after spending like an hour at the Rivian gear shop attached to the Laguna Theater, one of their employees, Ben, he was so kind, and like they were so accommodating and welcoming that I was given, an entry to the event the next day. And the whole time, there was that welcoming, which felt really nice and positive. And, I went to the Cybertruck delivery event. I've been driving Teslas for 12 years. I went to the Cybertruck delivery event, and we speak of it being a bit competitive. I mean, I was a +1 for somebody, and at the entry door, they decided that they weren't doing +1s anymore.
Oh wow.
So we were all kind of forced to stand off to the side, and there were people that drove from Nova Scotia, flew from Germany, and it was just this big ordeal to get in, and some folks were turned away. And their Rivian was, finding ways for me and everybody to participate, and that just felt great.
That's not a hot tip for R3 launch and R4. Don't everyone come showing up and going, let's go. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
to
great.
piggyback, what everyone said, yeah, it was very welcoming, right? All the employees there were super nice. It felt like we've been talking for, months to them, when, some of the folks we just met, right? I met my guide there. She was so welcoming. Everyone was just super amazing, super nice. And then the event itself was just smiles all around. It was it was so much fun. And shout out to Rivian for having all of this. They didn't have to, but they represented the community very well.
Yeah, and I think it really speaks, talking about community, the Rivian community is unique in that, I feel like I wasn't part of the Tesla community early on. And Kevin, you've been a Tesla owner for a very long time. You've probably been part of the community for a very long time. And I feel like, can you speak a little bit to what the beginnings of that look like in terms of the community? Do you feel it's very similar with Rivian? Does it feel different?
Yeah, I think so. The first Tesla we had in our family was in 2012. We got 2 signature Model S's. One was my father-in-law in Canada, and the other was my dad here in Orlando. So that was kind of our first foray. But I've been following the company since 2010. I joined the Tesla Florida Club like super early on. I mean, probably one of the first few hundred people. I think Tesla came from a much different spot. I think they had much bigger challenges kind of being the first to sort of get this thing going, and that was sort of always their mission, was to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable transportation that's now pivoted towards energy. um, and it was a hard battle. I did work there in 2013. You know, we had to deal with all the charging questions, of course, but like the early stuff, you know, are these going to catch on fire all the time? And I just don't think maybe Tesla's shed this combative, you know, underdog type story, even as they've grown to be this nearly 2 million vehicle, you know, business. But um, I try and remember what their core mission is, and that would have them encourage every company that's making electric vehicles to make more. So I know at the core of Tesla's mission, they would be happy with Rivian and they would like to see them succeed. Um, but there, you know, there was tons of community at the start for sure. You know, we'd go to supercharger openings. The first one I went to was in Port Orange, Florida. You know, we went to the Olive Garden after for lunch, and there were Tesla employees and owners, and I took my dad's Model S, and you know, uh, I think everyone was very welcoming except one of the Tesla employees, and as I eventually worked for the company and that progressed, that employee never liked me for one reason or another. But I'd say besides that interaction, it was great. I think the difference um, with Rivian now is exemplified with the event where they did unveil kind of a whole slew of products that are going to suit a lot more people's needs. I think R3 is getting a ton of attention, and good reason. We don't have a lot of specs and pricing, which we can talk about later, but they're really like paving their next 5 or 10 years. And even as Tesla has plans for a more affordable, you know, vehicle to come out, I think that's where the R3 fits in. And I think it's really cool to see them plan. But Rivian and their idea of getting more people into EVs and being adventurous and doing fun things and family being important and going on these adventures, like that at their core is bringing in a lot of people that are going to do all these great things and make their lives better. Early on at Tesla, I think it was just buying a cool electric car.
Mhm.
um, you know, you'd wave to everybody going down the street, and you know, there are Teslas all over the place, and I'm not really sure what that community looks like anymore. I kind of joke they're like Camrys now, in a very positive way, because you know, if you want a great EV and that's that, you know, you buy a Model 3 or something like that. But I think Rivian's culture is younger but vibrant, exciting, and personally, I love adventure. So, you know, I can feel that in the ethos.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. So with that, let's jump into it, right? Let's talk about the Rivian R2. So Rivian unveiled the R2, a brand new mid-size vehicle SUV, and here it is in its all glory. It is, I mean, when you look at it, right, it looks like a baby R1S, and that is pretty much what it is. It is a baby R1S. Fun fact: while talking at the event, I actually did learn that the R2 was developed before the R1, but was put on the back burner. So in theory, the R1S came out of the R2's design. So technically, I guess you could say that the R1S is a baby to the R2. But in this scenario, we'll call it the baby R1S just because it's easier, and that is exactly what it looks like. So let's kind of jump in there and talk about some specs. So first off, the Rivian unveiled the R2. You can actually go reserve it right now. As of today, it is March 9th, 2024. You can go put in a reservation for $100 US. It is fully refundable. So if you decide later you don't want it, which would be blasphemous, but if you decided you didn't want it, you could do that. And if you live in the north, in Canada, it is 150 Canadian dollars for a reservation. So you can go ahead and do that. Some very basic numbers I'm going to throw out. I'm going to throw out just a couple of little details, and then we'll kind of talk about it. The expected starting price for the vehicle will be about $45,000. Deliveries are expected to begin in the first half of 2026. The R2 and the R3, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is built on an all-new mid-sized vehicle platform that Rivian has built out. The R2 can sit 5 people comfortably, supposedly. We'll see. None of us get to sit in it, unfortunately. They did not let us into the interior of the vehicle, so we will have to wait and find out for more of that. The vehicle will be offered in 3 different motor variants. We'll have a single motor rear-wheel drive, a dual motor all-wheel drive, and then a tri-motor variant, which is kind of the performance variant, that will have 2 motors in the rear and 1 in the front. In terms of range, it is expected that at least 2 of the 3 trims will get at least 300 miles of range. In an interview that RJ had with, I think, MKBHD, Marquez Brownlee, it was stated that the single motor rear-wheel drive variant will probably have about 270 miles. These are just estimations. We'll know more, but we get more details. This is using a new battery cell that Rivian has worked on. It's a 4695 cell. So it is a taller cell than the current ones that you would find in R1. What we do know is the R2 and R3 will feature 2 different battery sizes. Not really sure in terms of what the kilowatts looks like for that. It will have native NACS North American Charging Standard charging plug, and we got to see that in person. So, or as most people call it, the Tesla plug, right? It will have that. And you still will be able to use CCS charging with it, with an adapter. So it kind of flipped to what it looks like today with the R1, or soon enough with the R1 when we get access to the Tesla supercharging network. So I threw a lot of information out there, but let's kind of talk about it. We can go down the list here, David, if you want to start, and we'll kind of go down. But what are your thoughts? Like just immediately, seeing this vehicle, getting to kind of see it in person and all that, and go for it.
Yeah. It honestly, was kind of exactly what I expected. I know there's a few leaked photos going around online, and some people were complaining that, well, it's just a baby R1S. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want. I don't need a 3-row SUV. I don't need to spend another $90,000 on another R1. So for me, this was like, yes, I want the R2, but just a little bit smaller. And here we got it. I think just before I talk about size, to touch on range, I believe it was that every variant of the vehicle will be capable of 300 or more miles. And that's where the possibility of multiple battery packs will come into play. But I think it's safe to assume that the base model starting price is probably not going to come with over 300 miles.
No.
But, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what they do. But yeah, I guess I want to just start on size. In the photos and videos, it looks a lot bigger than I think people realize it is. On paper, it is about 1 inch to 2 inches shorter than a Tesla Model Y. But I told my wife that, and she's like, there's no possible way, because we watched the reveal, and she's like, it's so much bigger. And I'm like, that square structure was brilliant for Rivian to continue to this R2 line, because you're getting something that's 1 inch shorter than a Model Y, roughly 2 inches narrower in width, but that square shape allows for just significantly more cargo room, passenger volume. And I did even hear one Rivian employee, this might not be accurate. I think we should state this entire video. There are going to be caveats, changes. So just putting that out there. But I did hear one Rivian employee state that the rear legroom is actually larger in R2 than it is in R1S because of the packaging of the third row in the R1S and the cargo space in R2. So I'm really hoping that's true. That would be a great little surprise. But yeah, Steve, why don't you start on kind of the next thing?
Yeah, I want to talk about kind of like the engineering side of things that I was seeing for like production and stuff like that, since it kind of falls under my teaching hat and stuff like that anyway. One thing I want to talk about is that hood. If you look at the hood compared to the R1s, it actually meets the lights. There's no gap in between, and it kind of is like a very flat edge versus if you look at the R1s, it's a little bit more curved. Like in the R1s, you'll have like maybe about 2 or 3 inches where it kind of goes up and then it kind of goes back. The R2 and even the R3, they kind of have this kind of a little bit more flat look. And I think it actually kind of gives it a little bit of a meaner stance in the front end. I don't know, but that's kind of what I noticed right off the bat. The other thing is you look at...
Sorry, I think they said it was a clamshell design, right?
Right, it's a clamshell, and that's the next thing,
yeah.
So if you look at the hood also, it actually kind of centers around the whole front end. So it kind of like you said, it's like a clamshell or like almost like a compact from like makeup where it kind of surrounds the whole front end and the whole frunk area. That's going to make it a lot easier to produce, not have to line up gaps for panels and everything, because it kind of just slots in. And then if you look at the side, you've got several more panels where replacement for like crashes, insurance and stuff like that is going to be cheaper in the long run. I thought that was a really kind of a smart idea here. One of the biggest complaints about the R1 right now is minor accidents cost a lot because panels are so large. This way, they can handle smaller chunks, get things fixed. I think that was great. Also finding out the reason behind the charge port being on the rear passenger side. Was interesting. Talking to a few of the Rivian folks in the event, there were 2 main choices behind the rear passenger side. One was for the European market. I thought that was an interesting comment by Rivian when they were saying that they're really looking forward to the European market. They want to make sure they meet their needs. And the second being, you can back into a Rivian charger and charge there. So you have that kind of that benefit that if you're at a RAN charger, you'll have that access point for yourself. So
can you provide a little more detail around the European piece? Why on the passenger side for Europe?
I was actually kind of curious about that choice, but they just said that they were focused on the European market and that was the reason behind it. That was the aspect of it. I guess there's a lot of several like level 2 chargers available for people when they're parking along the streets, stuff like that. So that they have the opportunity to easily plug into a charger on the passenger side. So I'm assuming not Britain in this case, but for the mass of Europe, basically being able to pull up, go to the street, plug in on the side, and then kind of leave it there.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. There's significantly more charging in parallel parking spots in the EU. So passenger side was the safe one. And then there was actually, I believe, a third reason. I could be wrong here, but the simplification of routing the electrical to the battery pack for the rear wheel drive variant, because the motor is in the back on the single motor. That is a lot less cabling that needs to happen for the battery pack versus like in the R1 where it's in the front. It's a lot more cables. And then the 2-motor or 3-motor variant doesn't change that very much because that line is still going right to the battery pack. So,
and that actually brings up a point that we were talking with someone, David, and I brought up, well, wouldn't that be the case if it would be smaller wiring if you guys have plans on increasing the voltage pack size? And we were told at that moment in time that no, wiring will remain the same size due to the fact that the battery pack is going to be same voltage as is existing in R1. And I think we were all a little...
a 400 volt architecture.
A 400 volt architecture. And I'm a little disappointed by that. But with the new cells, I'm more curious what charging curves will look like
Yep.
in regards with the newer cells. So let's hold back on any judgment on that because it's way too early. But any hopes for an 800 volt architecture, unfortunately, doesn't bode well for anyone out there.
And it's going to be, I think, simplification and cost, right? The 400 volt architecture is just going to be more affordable in the long run. And these vehicles are designed to be a good cost, but obviously have I'm hoping Rivian wants a good profit margin on them, right? At the end of the day, in order to be able to survive and create this vehicle, that's what they want to do. So yeah.
I think the last point on the charging point, at least that I have, is the charging port, excuse me. On the prototypes that were there, both of them were manual open. That could very well change by production and even maybe the shape a little bit. But that was just worth noting that it is manual. And again, kind of my last comment on the positioning, the only reason that I tend to prefer front charging, like on the R1 line, is if you are ever towing, potentially going into a space sideways is easier. But then if we are equipped with a potential future camp kitchen or bike racks on any of our vehicles, backing into a space for a majority of stations that don't have a very long cable, but then you add 3 feet of gear, that could actually be a pretty big deal. So I don't know, maybe Rivian will change their minds in the future and put it on the front. We'll see.
We need to go back to the days of the Leaf, right? When the Leaf had it just in the middle of the front trunk. And I think the Kia Niro or one of the Kias over there has it as well, right dead center in the front, and I think that's an optimal place for it. I know
statistically the rear is the least likely. The rear side is the least likely to have an impact. Right,
sure.
That's like a front. We heard that from someone that worked in the insurance part of I don't know if it was Rivian or someone, but we heard that basically the chances of damage from impact on the passenger or driver side,
which is surprising to think that the R1s have it right in the front, front corner there, where I have to imagine that an impact there would be costly. So.
Yeah, I'm like David. I prefer the front as well. It's extremely useful on my R1T. I just pull into my garage cable. I hardly even unravel my cable. Just pull in and plug it in.
Yeah,
so,
I'm somebody that does tow pretty frequently with EVs, and I totally get the whole backing in being a problem, or trying to find a charger where you can take up a bunch of spots to not have to take your trailer off. But I think it's kind of interesting how much conversation the charge port door is creating.
Yep.
I think Rivian is being thoughtful both on costs and how customers charge and use them, but I think they're also looking at what charging looks like in 2 years. And you've got a couple camps. You've got Tesla, who built the supercharger network that everybody can soon access. But I think Rivian's also giving themselves some credit with the RAN network, and they're not giving up on that as far as I can tell. But I think they also understand that all the new superchargers going forward, they're going to have much longer cabling. It seems like these V4 dispensers are put in the middle, and then there are NACS extender kind of adapters in development. So if you're towing, if you have a camp kitchen, other things, I wouldn't be surprised if you'll be able to carry a coiled up, 5 or 10 foot extender if that's something that you need. So I think it's not a miss. I think they know what they're doing, but I think they're not completely opposed to hearing feedback and changing if they royally kind of screw this up. So anyways.
And just to say, if we want to just, I am of the to counter Kevin and maybe some others here, I am of the mindset that rear driver side is is optimal charging. As we're all going to have our opinions, right? And that's just because I came from having a Model Y for a very long time, and there was nothing better than backing into a I like to back into a charger, right? I don't like to just pull into a charger. I like to be able to see, what's going on in front of me. So for a long time I was used, and so one of the things I actually dislike about the Rivian is that I always have to pull back or pull into a charger. Whereas now I don't have the visibility behind me where people are walking or people are driving and all that. So it's more of for me as a safety / awareness thing. And so right now, the way, for example, in my home, I have my charger set up in my garage. I have to back into my garage so that I can, put the plug in. And that's just kind of, how I decided to do it, because it's easier for me to get out of the vehicle because my garage is tight, et cetera, et cetera. But and of course, I've heard and seen and read some interviews with RJ where, he stated that the idea of having the charge port in the rear of the vehicle is a cost savings, obviously, because the base trim model, motor variant will be a single motor rear wheel drive. So, you have to throw high voltage cables to the front of the vehicle. That's just additional costs. But I still have a little faith that maybe, keep the port in the back, fine, but let's flip it to the driver's side. Why? It's also just more convenient. Like, you're the driver, you're getting out of the vehicle, you want to be on the same side when you're plugging in. It reminds me of the days when I had a gas car and, you had to go to the other side, right? Usually European cars had the gas cap on the other side, right, on the passenger side. So it reminds me of that a little bit. So, but yeah, Kevin, to echo you on social media and all that, this has probably been the one negative I've heard regarding R2 and R3. Everything else has been very positive, but the argument is about the charge port.
Isn't it interesting that that's what it is? It's like one of the most ticky-tack kind of situations. It's not that, oh my gosh, the R2 is a smaller R1S. It's, man, that port on the back rear, right, man. Pfft.
I mean, maybe it just shows how good it is, though. That's what we find.
You're muted,
David.
David.
I think David's talking on
David,
mute.
you're muted. Nope,
we lost your audio, David.
But I mean, yeah, it just goes back to simplification, right? That's what the R2 is about. It's about simplification. They have, standard suspension, right? There's no air suspension, so that, you don't have to worry about any type of failure. They don't have a rear screen. Again, it cuts down on cost savings, but it doesn't look bad because, it's you still have your controls back there. So you have your controls for your HVAC, and you have your controls for your heated seats. So it's all smart moves for Rivian, who needs a lot of smart moves right now, which they're doing leaps and bounds of by doing these 3 new vehicles, by optimizing where all their funding is going, by building this R2 in normal. I mean, they needed a turnaround. This event is very clear that they're trying to head into the right direction, and it looks like they are.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
There you go. Sorry about that.
So what were you saying, David, earlier? There was a lot of mouth movement.
Oh, no. Steve, when you mentioned,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's funny how the only negative comments tended to be around the charge port. There was another non-Rivian subreddit that I won't name the name of, but every complaint about the R2 line was literally about the charge port location. And it's like, you know what, if that's the worst that everyone is saying, I think Rivian's doing a really good job.
Yes.
Yeah.
I concur.
Sapan, do you want to talk a little bit about the styling of R2, or maybe like some of the window features or interior or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, so I have an R1S, right? So I know, the whole SUV in and out. It's very similar, right? As everyone mentioned, there are no surprises. This was a baby R1S, which is a good thing. Everyone, who I talked to about the R1S said, oh, I like it, but I don't need 3 rows. Which is fair, right? If you're not hauling around 7 people at any given point in time, you don't need a car that has 7 passenger seating. So yeah, the interior was phenomenal. I liked their material choices. It reminded me of very Volvo-esque, right, with the material choices, the dashboards, the seating. I liked all their new features, the dual glove boxes, which I'd love a glove box. If we could find a way to like mount that on, I'll leave that to Steve. But yeah, I loved all their choices. I love the new haptic feedback wheels, the new, software language. Yeah, it's all positive in my book. Yeah.
I reserve judgment on the steering wheel until I get to play with it. I really like the Rivian steering wheel currently, and so I was surprised they went away from it so quickly. But let's see. I hope the haptics.
Yeah.
I hope the haptic works really well. I really do.
I think they did that for wear and tear, because I know, the current steering wheel situation, over time, those buttons, they're not gonna stay smooth and exactly the way they look right now, right? So I think that haptic feedback, which I saw on, Marquez Brownlee's video, that it changes also based off what infotainment screen you're on. So, you have long scrolls for certain screens, you have very short scrolls for certain screens. So yeah, I think they did a cool move on that. As you said, we'll see how it works and how it feels, but sounds like it'll be good.
I thought
Visually, they are pretty
yeah.
large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my wife was like, "Whoa, that's really weird," because she drives, our one all the time, and she's like, "That, like, why are they so big?" That was her question. Why are the wheels so big?
I also
And
like that but both vehicles, both R2 and R3, and we'll talk R3 more later, but had I don't know if you guys noticed, had physical unlock buttons
yeah.
on the doors, which is nice. That I actually really appreciate. If you have someone else try to drive your vehicle, they're like, "Where do I unlock at?" Like they have no idea, And so like the choices of physical buttons showing up, like spending the time, spending the money to have physical buttons, I think goes a long way to making it easier to kind of adapt it going into it. Like they didn't go away from stocks. They didn't go away from, everything is like a car, right? They're not trying to cheapen the experience. They've got a screen in front of the steering wheel. No shots fired there. But I mean,
Yeah.
my dad, I'll give you a good example. My dad just bought a Model Y. He didn't have a need for a large SUV or a truck, and he wanted something. He's older. He's in his late 60s now, and he wanted something that would be electric and comfortable to drive for him. And he complains all the time about not having a dash in front of him. And he keeps telling, and I tell him, like, you can add it aftermarket. He goes, but what about my warranty? So,
Yeah, but that screen and the buttons that you mentioned shows that while this has to be a really cost-effective vehicle for Rivian in order to make it cost-effective for the rest of us, they're not just cost-cutting across the board. They're spending the money where it is needed most, in a simple switch in the door or a second glove box that is completely unnecessary but extremely welcome, or the screen behind the wheel that everyone wants and loves. So I'm glad that they are spending the money, at least that so far that we've seen, where it really needs it.
and they're smaller screens.
Yes, I did notice that. A couple of things. I have this image pulled up here. So first off, over in the door handle, you mentioned you have the window controls, obviously physical lock and unlock buttons, which is super awesome. But also the door, instead of being a lever, is now a button. So a la Tesla, right? Obviously, there will be a manual release somewhere because you have to have a manual release should your battery die. But I do like the button. The button. I'm a fan of that. I like it. Something else too I noticed, and it's very noticeable in this picture. Let me see if I can zoom in some more.
That's a good picture for it. If I think I know what you're going towards.
Yeah. So here in this stock, I noticed that, and forgive me if I can zoom in some more on this wonderful photo. Over here in where the stock is, you'll notice that it says PND. So the prindle, right, is there. The gear shift, and so it looks like this stock doesn't physically move up or down, at least not in the traditional sense of like today, where you tap down and it goes into drive, or you tap up and it goes into reverse or neutral. It looks like you will utilize this little wheel that's right here, this little gold copper wheel inside to actually change the gear that you're in. So that's going to be a change, which will take some getting used to, I'm sure, especially if you're coming from an R1 vehicle or another else. What do we think?
Make it
about
easier
that?
getting into neutral in a car wash.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know if I super love that. Like I throw my stock around while I'm still rolling back, 2 miles an
Yes.
hour.
Yeah.
But it's if the left side is going to move, it almost makes sense for the right side to move as well. Like the Kia Hyundai family of products, you twist the end of the cap, and
Yeah.
I'm personally not a big fan of that. But I wonder if that is going to be actually for drive control, or if we're not seeing text on the other side for a light or wiper or something like that. I mean, only time will tell. But
Only time will tell. But yeah, that was some, and this is one of those things that I didn't notice, at least until we got these photos on the Rivian.com website, because again, we didn't really get a chance to look at the interior not clearly, right? The doors were closed, there were windows up, there was a lot of lights flashing and blinding us. So and then of course you have this steering wheel, which we kind of very briefly talked on, and with these giant dials that will have haptic feedback, which is really, really cool. Yeah, this should be interesting to see how these work. I'm curious, will you be able to press them? Like, because you got to have there's multiple functions that the steering wheel does today, such as, skipping tracks, volume up, volume down, going back, setting the distance, setting your speed. If I look at this and the way I'm just looking at it right now, it looks like the function is up, down, right? You scroll up, scroll down. Are you going to be able to press them? Are they going to be able to do
they will
something
move side to side as well. Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to be a lot of new controls that people are going to have to learn. I mean, we're going to have to learn.
Although we're saying that from a Rivian, but Tesla has one wheel and it moves
They do.
up and down, side to side, and clicks in and out.
Right.
So this is one wheel, just 5 times.
It's no different, just bigger. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, I like the Tesla Model Y steering wheel. I'm driving Kevin's Model Y this week because my truck is getting wrapped, and so I forgot how just easy it is to like flick up and set it at 5 more miles per hour, right, for autopilot or full self driving. So I do enjoy that a lot. But yeah, so that's kind of the steering wheel there.
I like that Rivian is including driver-oriented things. So Jose, funny, you're driving my Model Y for a bit. I had some Canadian friends in town for a week, and they drove my Model 3 for that time. And then tonight, just sort of before we were kind of winding up the night, he's like, "Hey, could I take your Rivian out and drive it?" And the first thing he said when he sat in it was, "Wow, I really like that there's a screen here in front of me as the driver."
Yep.
That was the first thing of anything he could have said. And then he said, "I really, missed that the last week with the Model 3." And Tesla's removing stocks and putting your turn signals on the steering wheel. I like that Rivian's staying driver oriented. I think that they know their customers really well. I think they know if you're going to go deep into the woods and camp and park next to and between big trees, like full self-driving does not play any part of that. It's never going to. So I kind of like the idea they're laying into what their customers want to do, and frankly, like I think the world's kind of boring if we're supposed to just sit in a car and like it drive 2 miles to take my kids to school. Like, no, I want to drive my kids to school because I want to spend time with them.
Yeah.
I don't see any benefit to me being able to send a car, So they're including and keeping the things that we want. And I would love to know the line item cost savings by like not having a turn signal on a stock, but I think you could find other areas to save some money.
Sure.
Yeah.
I actually found this photo that I took. So
Yeah,
you gotta
nice.
didn't even know I took this photo. You have obviously over here the left stock with the turn signals, the windshield wipers. Looks like there's a knob here, so that's probably for your light controls, kind of like how we have it on the R1 today, if you're familiar. On this side over here, though, you can kind of see, obviously, it looks like you'll be able to push in for park. You have this first layer of dial that will be your gear. And then it looks, if I'm not mistaken, the second gear will be for distance control. So your distance.
The amount of people that are going to accidentally miss
Yeah.
that distance control, if that is what it is, and hit the driver and get errors on the screen, I would reconsider that if that's actually what
Right.
it is, if I were designing.
Here's my terrible attempt at taking a photo of the buttons that we talked about earlier. Like I said, Rivian has better, but yeah. Anywho, so I digress. Okay, let's look. Let's pull up. Where the heck did I lose? Okay, so we talked about that. So, a couple of other things because we got very picky into that, and we're already at 45 minutes. Oh boy. So, we're gonna give Kyle Connor a run for his money on how to play. So, motor variants. Let's just very quickly talk about that. Single motor, rear wheel drive will be the base. Makes sense. Dual motor, all wheel drive will be the kind of the mid ground. I think that makes sense. And then tri motor. So moving into having two motors in the rear, one in the front. I think that's gonna be pretty darn fast. I think that's going to be exciting. It looks like, at least with the R2 and R3 line, they're getting away from having a quad motor variant. It looks like that's going bye-bye. Sure, there's cost savings to having one less end motor, right? So,
and space savings as well. But I mean, hey, if the tri-motor is well under 3 seconds, like RJ said, that's great.
I think the tri-motor was a surprise, but I think it also just says, hey, we're Rivian and we're in contention with anyone when it comes to performance. And when you start having a sub 3 second 0 to 60 vehicle of any kind, like the debate's done. It's like, cool, we get it. You can do it. And whether or not they're 2.5 or 2.6 or 2.7, they're just going to check that box to just stand on their own against any of these companies performance wise, which I actually predicted it would be 2.8 to 3 seconds. So I'm pretty happy with that, but I figured they would just so, they have that clout.
So kind of bringing that up, and I'm going to reference the R3X here for a moment with the orange coloring. And what we heard, that orange coloring will now become a part of their performance variants, right? Like that was something that they kind of hinted at, that was going to be like kind of the highlight color. Can we see, do you think that the tri-motor might be like an R2X? Like basically,
they didn't say that name, but I hope they do. I like the overall coherence between that.
Yeah,
and R1TX.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the idea of the R1TX or the R2X or R3X as their performance variant, it becomes like the M badge for BMW, right? It means something. Like you're getting something above and beyond. And I hope they kind of play into that. That orange that was on R3, I would love to see more often. I think it pops, maybe not used as much like on the certain aspects, but like just having just it on the badge and on the logo, the Rivian logo, brake rotor, stuff like that. I would love to see that more and more. I think that would be a smart move.
And I know it's a prototype, the Compass logo on the hood and on the wheels on the R3X were still yellow outlines. There's a bit of clashing between the two colors.
Yeah.
But as long as it's one, then that'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, I think something to remember there is that's the brand color, right? So they're going to have to figure that out, because if you take the yellow Compass and make it orange, well, it's a lot of orange. It's a lot of color, but also it may not be on brand, right? It's not their brand logo. So,
or just black it out. I don't know.
That's what I was about to say. How do you either black it out or, I don't know. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
More orange.
I don't think the X variant's going to work because R1 SX, I don't know.
It sounds great. What are you talking about, dude?
That is a terrible name. You're right.
It
You
is.
could not call. I don't think an R1 TX would work very well because that's too close to T-Rex, and I'm sure Dodge or Ram would get angry about the. I don't know. I just feel like it'll be.
That's already the nickname for the R3X is Rex.
Which it can't be. I'm sorry. That's WRX. That's Subaru. We can't. I'm sorry.
But,
it's been adopted.
As a non-Subaru person, that like when Rex means nothing to me other than now Rivian. So
Be
sorry.
still my heart. Be still my heart. It's okay. I'm gonna hold out for all those Subi fans out there, but let's be honest right now, Subi fans, that R3X is killing all of our Subi hopes.
So let's jump in. Let's talk about R3 and R3X because I think it's only
real quick. Can we cover
the
cargo space and some of the rear of the R2?
Yeah, go
That's
for
okay. I think we have it. Yeah. So, I mean, everyone saw the middle row goes down just like every other vehicle, but then the addition of the front seats going down is really cool. I'm picturing this almost as a solo overlander where the driver's seat is always up, but then you've got your like interior bed if you don't want a rooftop tent. That's on the passenger side. Your armrest in the middle with your phone, charger, and your cup holders are almost like a little nightstand. Like there's so many use cases for this that I'm very excited about.
And then
I
think you said it, but the rear passenger room. I think you mentioned, David, that it's bigger. And I think that's right.
Hopefully,
because MKBHD. I don't know if you saw that video. He sat back there. He's a tall dude. He's like 6'3", and he had like several inches of space in front of him. So I think it's going to be quite big.
I heard on that they really doubled down or committed to a 5-seater.
Yeah,
and
a proper 5-seater.
Didn't try and make a 7-seater fit in any way.
Yeah,
I mean, I still kind of hope it does, but my Model Y has 7 seats.
I realized that today. How often do you use those 2 seats, though?
I mean, I have 2 young kids, so in reality, we've used it 8 times in nearly 3 years. So I wouldn't say it's completely necessary. I mean, I think for Rivian, they can say if you need 7 seats, go with the R1S. You're going to be much happier. Today, I sat in the 3rd row, had a great time. There were 8 of us in the car. Figure that out, but we did it. When we have 7 in the Model Y, I mean, it's a terrible experience for everybody, especially the 2nd row people.
Yeah.
So I like that they're kind of committing to that 5-seater only. So perhaps they just really, push that 2nd row back a little bit, and that frees up leg room. And I think that's super smart. And then they use their box shape to maintain tons of trunk space.
Yeah. And let's not forget, we get 2 glove boxes now. After many years of complaining of no glove boxes, it turns out that Rivian's like, you want glove boxes? Have 2.
It's like they're making up for R1. They're like, here, buy an R2, and then you have 2 per each vehicle. One for each vehicle. There you go.
Right.
I thought that was interesting.
They're listening so much to their customers.
Yeah, it is great to see that.
That actually kind of brings up a good point. This being a prototype, like we had noticed that there were no short range sensors for parking on the vehicles or anything like that. So a lot of the sensor systems are not in place on any of these pictures. So like final locations for cameras, sensors, stuff like that are possible to change based on what Rivian was saying.
Yeah, we asked about that, and it turns out that when you're making a clay model and all that, drawing little circles for parking sensors can get really annoying. So that's not there. Yeah, because we were like, oh my God, what's going on? Are they going vision only?
Vision.
Yeah, I was worried about that.
That was confirmed by Rivian. No, they are not. Their parking sensors will be there. That's one of the last things that is actually programmed and tuned in on the vehicle. So yeah, that's good to hear.
And then I real quick, because I know a lot of people are concerned about towing and the hitch and everything. I did ask, I forget one of the folks' names, but he was one of the main engineers on this project for R2. and he did confirm that the hitch is going to be optional. It's going to be, part of a package, just like it was, or just like the off-road package was with the R1. The hitch package is going to be, probably very similar. It's going to be.
It makes sense. Like if
part
you
of
look
a
at the
towing
Model
package.
Y, it's an optional thing, right?
Yeah.
$1,000 or whatever, and you get a hitch.
Yeah. And so, for those who do want to tow and obviously have those extra accessories like the new camp kitchen, and the racks and things like that for your bikes. That's going to be an option.
Well, but something to take into consideration, and we can kind of talk about this now, is all those accessories, such as the new camp kitchen, the bike rack, those will use the accessory ports that are located on the back of the vehicle, as opposed to tow hitch, when the accessory ports will be standard on the vehicles. So,
so far, yeah.
Yeah, so far from what we know, of course, everything's subject to change here with anything.
Yeah, and finishing up kind of the rear of the vehicle, the cargo space does have additional storage underneath the load floor. So there's a little bit of space. I did not see, and I did not hear from any Rivian employees, the room for a spare tire. So in my mind, I am saying that there is going to be no possible chance that there's a spare tire in this vehicle. That is what it is. But one thing that was cool that was not shown in the reveal was that the load floor actually can slide out a little bit. So if you want to sit down, but your bumper is dirty, you can slide it out, have a seat on it, and it is load bearing, which is pretty cool. And then when the vehicle hatch is closed, the rear window, like, RJ showed, rolls down. But one thing he didn't show in the video was, and this is a concept, but there was a little table that pops up to give you a little bit of shelf space. So if your hatch is closed, rear window down, there can be a little bit more room for maybe a laptop or drinks or something like that. I think it's kind of cool, but I don't know the times where I'm really going to want a table space and not just like open up the back and have a seat.
Right.
So I think if they have cut $300 somewhere, make it that. But.
That's true. I'm not there. But that could be the same. Like the we learned that the R2 has obviously the Rivian torch flashlight that sits in the driver door. Will be in all of these vehicles. So R2, R3, and R3X. But on the passenger side door, we learned that there's also a goodie. That's not what I want to show. There is a goodie, a little surprise, and of course, again, subject to change. It may not make it to final production. But pulling up the photo here so I can show it to you guys. Pretty much, there is another hole, that kind of looks the same as the flashlight, and here it is. And so it's this thing right here in the middle. And so what we learned is that this is actually a USB-C charger / hand warmer, which is a very interesting device.
Were we the first ones to talk about that, by the way?
I don't know if we were. I don't know if we were. I think it was. Yeah, I think one of. But as you can see in this little clip here, one of the gentlemen showed it to us, and yeah,
that's Austin, by the way. He was great at the event. So shout out to Austin from Rivian. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah. So I think one of the things. Yeah, I think honestly it's just a USB-C charger, and they're like, oh, it gets hot, hand warmer, perfect, let's do it.
Yeah.
But who knows? And of course, that's one of those little things where like, that's neat, but like, do we really need that? Can we cut that and save? Like, how much could that save? I don't know. Maybe it's not enough.
$20. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
And if you pull up the door photo again, I know it's hard to talk about a lot of the features on the car with detailed specifics because they aren't final yet. But so you can see the slot there. But no, in the actual side profile, like looking at the door trim, RJ mentioned the speakers are removed from being inside the door. I don't know where they are, but there's additional. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, in the front door, it is removed. Which I actually kind of like because it allows for like a water bottle or larger storage. And then the other thing that was removed was the camp speaker from underneath the center console. So don't expect that. There is a drawer in its place for additional storage. And then underneath the seats in the front, in the R1 line, there's a little kind of hidden storage compartment that is also gone from the R2 and the R3.
I gotta tell you, this is
kind
my,
of yeah, go ahead.
First time noticing it, but yeah, with that speaker gone, holy cow, you could fit
a lot of room.
Big bottle there.
And I think these, and by the way, these choices, in my opinion, are very smart moves. The getting rid of the speaker. As someone that has the speaker, I've used it once in almost 3 years of ownership, or two and a half years of ownership. The seats, like compartments that were supposed to replace the glove box, they're never big enough for like actually storing registration and licensing, which would be my number one case for it. It stinks that you can't easily put that there, so having the glove box instead makes complete sense. Also, I want to point out these are lower trim vehicles, full powered passenger seat. That's something that's
Do we know if they're lower trim or are they showing us top trim?
I don't know, but well, I guess trim wouldn't be, but lower, like cheaper vehicle, right? Let's go with cheaper vehicle. The fact that it still has powered seats and lumbar support, I think again that shows at least that they're trying to still keep it in a class of luxury in some shape or form. That kind of, it's really hard with electric vehicles, right? You're spending a lot of money on it because it's an EV, but with that cost, you have expectations of a certain class of luxury. And I think they're doing a really good job of kind of blending that EV and luxuriness. I just hope that they keep the adventure side going as much as possible. And I think that's where R3X comes in.
Yeah, along with like the heated seats in the front, heated seats in the rear. This could be top trim, but we'll see.
Yeah, but also it's one of those things where like it's about simplicity. So like, is it easier to just have heated seats across the board, right? I mean, not saying Rivian would do this, but they could pull a Tesla and like charge you and upcharge software to unlock the heated seats, right?
Yeah.
That these
or at the very least, offer the same feature set across the board, and what you're paying for is either range or performance in a dual and a tri-motor. Yeah,
which is kind of what it is today, right? When you think about it, it's, with the R1 line, you're paying for battery capacity, and what else? That's it, right?
And performance from motors. That's it.
Right. Because you might not need a 350-mile pack and you just want a little city car, but you want all the bells and whistles. You're not forced into an upper trim.
Yeah.
Speaking of city cars, let's talk about this. So this was a surprise. I don't think anyone in that room, and us included, expect. And so we knew R3 was in the works, right? They had RJ had talked about it. We knew that down the road they were going to work on R3. I don't think any of us expected them to announce R3 at this event, let alone have a functional vehicle roll out on the stage.
I think I looked at Sapan at one point, and we both looked at each other and said, products? Because like RJ said, products at one point. We're going to introduce some products today. Yeah. And I think both of us were probably both thinking R2T, maybe like a small truck, but I did not think two R3s would be rolling out behind it. What did you think?
So I remember exactly when it was either Brian Gase or Jeff Hammond, they started moving the R2 out of the way. As soon as they did that, I'm like, something else is coming. Like we're about to get. I thought they were going to either roll out additional R2s, like maybe they had other variants and colors, sure. or like Steve said, are we going to see a truck variant or something else? Like here's this skateboard chassis, because RJ made it very clear we have this new this new skateboard platform. We can do anything with it. I'm thinking, maybe they're going to make it like, they're going to show us like the platform that's going to be very flexible. Yeah. Boy, were we wrong. I just remember as soon as that happened and then R3 rolled out, all of us were that mind blown emoji.
It doesn't come across in video, but the jaws that just dropped on everyone from the media sections to the community section, it was just like, Holy cow. And I don't even think that the employees knew about this. I mean, the employees at the event knew, but company-wide, this is a very secretive
Special project.
yeah. And I think just the reception was just like,
I
holy
spoke
cow.
to a few people just that we met that worked in corporate or whatnot, and they got an email like 2 minutes before 10 o'clock telling them, by the way, we're announcing R3 today. And they were
crazy.
just that way. It wasn't a complete surprise to them, but it really was.
Yeah.
If you didn't check your email, you were like, "What?"
Yeah.
But here it is, R3, in its all, in my personal opinion, beautiful glory. It is a damn good-looking small hatchback crossover that still just like screams Rivian.
In the best retro way.
Yeah.
In the best. I got very excited the day I saw the Ioniq 5 for the first time because I love the retroness of it.
And this is even more so. Yeah.
This is even more and better.
Yeah.
So, so they introduced the R3. Here's just a couple of photos. You all have seen it, I'm sure, at this point. But
we know nothing about it. Yeah.
We know nothing about it other than it exists. It has a lot of the similar things that R2 will have. So it's going to have the dual glove box, the same battery packs, the same motor variants. So, single, dual, and tri. And that's pretty much where the information ends.
Was it like, was it 4 inches? It's 4 inches shorter, right? Is it?
I think 5.
Yeah. It's 5? 5. Yeah.
Yep. Obviously, here's a picture. Obviously, it's going to use NACS as well. And then front trunk, etc.
Can you go back up to the charging port again?
Yeah.
I actually really hope this carries over to R2. I prefer the oval on R3 for the charge port over the kind of like weird flap thing that's on R2. I hope that this design language carries over there because one, this gets out of the way a lot easier than what was shown on R2. And it just looks classier in a lot of ways. I don't know how else to describe it. But I think it would be smart of them to kind of do this on R2. Like they knocked it out of the park with this.
My only pushback is everything on the R3 is a little bit more rounded. Obviously, excluding the headlights, those are round on all of them. It has rounded tail lights. It's got more curve on the back, and R2 is very square across the board. Yeah. So is it weird to have this nice boxy looking SUV with a little hole?
I don't know, but at least get me this hinge, because this hinge is 1,000 times better than the hinge that's on R2.
I will say that the R3 charge port, because we always come back to talking about charge ports, the R3 charge port is much nicer integrated into the vehicle than R2. I feel like R2 was like an afterthought. Like, oh, we forgot to put the port. I guess you can stick it in this little corner back here and call it a day. And if we've learned anything, the R1 charge port, every time I open it, I get concerned that someone's going to break it by just touching it or something, because it just concerns me. Like you said, this is very it feels sturdy, it feels stable, it feels like it's just small and easy.
I got to let you know, Jose, the R1 charge opening thing is just such simple physics with it involved that it doesn't. Pressure, tension, it's not an issue on that thing. Trust me.
Well, that's good. That's good.
It really is.
But it doesn't feel like it.
I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's really stupid easy and not crazy. It really isn't.
That's good.
Take it from this old physics teacher.
Here's something to think about, and this is R2 also. No rear display in the thing. So, you kind of think about it, right? We're all R1 owners here, and that back screen in the second row is completely useless as of today. It doesn't serve really a purpose. So I think it's a good cost-cutting measure to just get rid of it and put air vents. You have, once more, interesting here, I've never seen this in the rear seat of any vehicle in my mind that I can think of, lock and unlock buttons right there. And then heated seats in the back. So yay, heated seats in the back.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
does. I mean, it's important to note too. It retains the hook on the back of the seat, along with
Yes.
the USB-C port. I know it's there's probably not a photo.
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah, so the functionality of like sticking a tablet on the back, that's all still good to go. So I'm glad they kept that little feature, which for people with kids can be a big functionality difference.
Look at
I
that
think
little
that
torch sticking out there. Go for it.
I love that you can see it
Yeah.
when the door's
I
closed.
think
Yeah.
I think the rear screen thing, in that they don't have one, is perfectly fine. You know, we try to minimize screen time for our kids, and I've borrowed a newer Model S with a rear screen one time, and
Yeah.
the kids were just constantly asking for something to be on, but it's totally unnecessary. We've never had a rear screen, and what do they do instead? Well, they're present with us. They look outside. You know, they live their lives. So I think it's not a big deal. But then to your point with like the coat hanger hooks on the back of the seats, if people want, they can put the tablet up there. And why is that better? Well, the tablet has all their logins already. It has all the apps the kids might want. I've I've felt that way about planes where some airlines pay to put in a small, really bad screen that must cost them
Yep.
a fortune. Instead, you know, most companies are leaning towards just letting you get Wi-Fi and entertainment through your own device, and it puts all the cost on the customer. Brilliant.
I
Here's
prefer it
my
that way. I'll be honest with
Yeah.
you. I prefer having using my own device, and like you said, it's easier just to log in on your own stuff and use it.
Yeah.
And the hooks are exactly the same as in the back of R1, so accessories that have been pre-made will work for that
Plug.
too. So
Yeah.
nice little plug there.
Yeah, this terrible photo here I have of R3. Again, lighting was just not
Yeah.
not anybody's friend here. But you can see a USB-C port there and the same hook. So
But yeah, so like stepping back, right? R3, you know, it's their European entry, right? You know, it's small, it's hot hatch style, which is all Europe. Europe's all about their hot hatches. To get that over there is going to be crucial for Rivian. And
Yeah.
then R3X, that's going to be. There was an article by Drive talking with Jeff Hammond. Their on their design boards was Lancia Delta Integrale, was Audi Quattro, the Group B rally specs. That's what their design language was, and I think it's going to be a total hit for the car enthusiast, right? Whether it's either here in America or over in Europe. This I know so many people who do not like electric vehicles. This was plastered all over their Instagram, Facebook, on how this makes them want to get an electric vehicle.
yeah,
I think they hit a home run with this.
I can't. Oh, go ahead, Jose.
no
Sorry.
go Steve.
I just want to that's a good point. Is that this thing? I don't know what it is. Like I was trying to describe it as like I feel like this is like the first true small electric sports car. Like we had the Roadster, but I'm like that was practically a prototype. If you talk to any owner of the original Tesla Roadster, like I really truly feel like this is like the reachable sports car, right? The Miata. Is this like the EV version of the Miata? Like something that like you jump into and you're happy to be driving it around because it's the solution to all EV. Like this is going to be that. Like I hope it is, because this has such character. It looks like it's going to have incredible performance. The fact that they were like showcasing this thing driving down a dirt road at high speed just it makes me so happy.
Drifting down a dirt road, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then it still has clearance. I mean, look at the clearance on that thing.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts. Man, I'm in line for this so badly. Like, and man, I can't wait.
It is definitely, in my opinion, and probably many, the coolest vehicle that was of the three that day, right? Like this was the most unexpected vehicle. Like I'm looking at this right now, just really, really looking at this photo that we're showing on the screen, and it screams Rivian, but it also doesn't. Like, I look at it, I'm like, this is a Rivian? What? Like, that's not the brand. Like, my mind, obviously, when I still think of Rivian today, I'm like R1T, R1S, R2 now, right? But like the R3 and the R3X even more, it's like, wow, this is that same company. Holy cow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
they can do that.
Take the rear badging off, right?
Yeah.
And it could be a Lancia, it could be a Peugeot, it could be a Fiat, it could be, I mean, it could be so many things. You know, it's so wild. Jeff Hammond, the design team, you know, they did such a good job. And again, I was talking with him. I mean, it's so good. It screams heritage, but futuristic.
Yeah, if you don't follow that guy on
yeah.
Instagram, his love for cars is very obvious, and
Yeah,
you know, it's like you mentioned earlier, or like Kevin mentioned earlier, kind of where this car gets its foundation. And in photos, it does look fairly small. It feel that small in person. In my opinion, and maybe you guys have a different one, it does feel bigger than a Crosstrek. Like that's kind of maybe what a
wider.
lot of people are comparing it to.
Wider,
It's definitely
yeah.
smaller. Yeah, it's wider, but the cargo space also looks, while we couldn't open it up in some of the photos, it does look larger than the Crosstrek, because that's a very shallow depth. But like compared to an Ionic and the Ionic 5, and you know, we say that for the shape of that rear end, it is smaller than that for sure, but still seems to offer just like with the R2, the packaging for this thing is big like that. Yeah, it looked pretty decent size there.
Yeah, that's a substantial amount of space right there. And again,
Mm-hmm.
like the R2 and the R3, this one, all the seats will fold flat, and you've got plenty of space in there to camp.
Did they say the front two would fold flat? Flat, excuse me. I missed that. If they said that, I didn't.
Yeah. On their website, it states that. Yeah.
Okay. It almost seems like that might be the style that they're heading towards across the board. I could see that maybe being part of a refresh for R1 because of how they're moving forward. Like I could see a lot of the stuff that they were doing here carrying over to R1. Choices of textile, like the almost Venom fabric that they had going throughout a lot of the R2 and R3, I could see being used. I guess some variants of R1 have that same fabric around the charge port, or the phone charger, excuse me. The use of these pops of color here and there to kind of give a little bit more personality to the interior. There was a lot of choices design-wise that you can see is going to be affecting the future of Rivian here.
Although I do hope that they don't bring in a lot of this material to R1 personally, because you are paying for 2 R2 base model trims to get an R1. So it needs to still have that premium feel. And so I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. And I think that's a good point. It's like, because we don't know if it was like a cork or something similar to cork in one of them. Longevity wise, I don't want. Yeah. It was cork. I don't think I would want to see cork in my R1.
No. There's also 18,000 different fabrics and patterns happening in just this photo right here.
It's not simplistic enough for production. So we'll see something nice, but definitely not.
Well, and I mean, the R3X could be, definitely a more expensive, high-end version, right?
It has to be. I mean, there's the fact that you're widening the vehicle, a solid 2 to 3 inches, that's kind of crazy. That's a significant difference underpinning that vehicle completely.
I'm gonna go unplug. I'll be right back.
Okay. See who's charging. Okay. So, any final thoughts on R3? Like I said, we don't know a lot. RJ did hint in an interview, I think, again, either MKBHD, Marquez Brownlee, or somebody else, that that R3 will definitely be cheaper than R2, obviously. So the question, obviously becomes, how much will that be? And, we don't really know yet. This is still a ways away.
Didn't they say though that the goal of R2 is to be in the 30s? They don't know where in the 30s, but the goal is to be in the 30s.
I could see a $38,000 truck, $38,000 base model, right? Like I could see that being realistic. We'll see, right? We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the more so important thing is where are they going to build it, right? Because if they are slated for R2 in 2026, which that's not far, that's 2 years, especially at the start of 2026, then I think I read somewhere or someone was mentioning that they're trying to enter Europe like as a big competitor 2027. Does that mean R3 is going to be 2027? And if so, is that also normal?
Well, R2 is going to Europe. That was confirmed by Rivian.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, sorry, I'm trying to work around my microphone. I can't see. Their website, if you go to the European website, you can do that. I'm pulling it up here for a second. It did state that R2 will be coming.
I think 2027, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
coming.
Sorry, and I missed it. Did you mention pricing as well?
We talked about potential starting definitely in the 30,000s is where they wanted to be
for R3.
Yeah, and so,
my prediction is going to be 37,000.
I said 30.
or maybe 37,499 for the sole reason that if the tax credit in the future exists in its current state, to have a car that starts with a 2.9 in front of it would be a massive selling point.
So then we're all assuming that the 4695 cells are going to be made in the U.S. by Rivian, and then therefore actually
maybe not by Rivian, but I believe RJ has said in the past that this vehicle, in theory, is going to qualify for the current tax credit that exists.
Yes. Yeah. That is what they're hoping for. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff here in the horizon. We'll eventually get more information on R3 down the road, and it'll be very exciting. Before we even get to R3, though, there's still a lot we don't know about R2. So there's still tons of more data there that's going to come out. And we asked Rivian, obviously, when we were there, any of those details, but nothing's been really finalized there. So in terms of colors and accessories and wheel options, all that good stuff, we don't really know. But I want to kind of wrap it up a little bit, but I do want to talk about the accessories that Rivian kind of showed off. And because there were some really cool accessories shown. Now, I want to caveat on a personal note, I will not get my hopes too high for Rivian accessories because the camp kitchen that was supposed to come in the gear tunnel, that wasn't something I wanted, but I know a lot of people did. David wanted it.
It's the reason I bought the T over the S. Yeah.
So there is just you have to take these with a grain of salt. What they showed was awesome, and that's where that ends. So let's walk through some of these. I have some photos here we can show, and these are just press photos, but they showed.
I have a lot of thoughts on these, by the way. I have a lot of thoughts. Yes. I actually most of my conversations were around these accessories, by the way, with Rivian folks.
So Jose's going to show photos, and you're just going to go through a speed round.
Yeah, basically, I'm
So they showed off, and I'll just name them, and then we'll go through them. We saw a travel kitchen. We saw a Rivian treehouse, and we'll show you what that looks like in a minute. We saw a cargo box that provides additional storage, and then bike mount as well. And all of these accessories utilize something Rivian's calling the rear accessory ports, which are located on the R2 and R3 product line.
Not the treehouse, but the others. Yeah.
Right. The treehouse goes on top. We'll show you that in a second. Now, before I show you the accessories, I want to show you my beautiful photo I took of the accessory ports, just so you understand what those are if you don't. And I even circled them with beautiful red circles. Let me pull this up here so you can see what these look like. So this is my beautiful iPhone circle artwork thing I did. So this is the back of the R2. These little thingies right here, these are magnetic covers that can come down, and you have some rear accessory ports. Yeah.
They fold in. They fold in.
They fold in, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, fold in, yeah. It's not magnetic. And that will provide power to these rear accessory ports. So that is how that will work. So now that I have shown you that, let me show you what the products look like. And then I will let Steve talk because clearly he has a lot of opinions about these products. Which one do you want me to start with, Steve? Do you have a
go with the something that actually has the 2 accessory posts, like the actual things that go in, because I think that's the most important. Yeah, so the bike rack would probably be the easiest one.
So let me show you, because I took photos of these. So let's pull that up, and we have, here we go. Okay, so not the best quality photo. Again, you have to forgive me because we had to work with what we had there. But this one is the back of the R3X with. Yeah.
So those accessory posts. So the way that they're able to actually make this work and still fit in the front is that every single piece you see here is separate. So each bike, like where it's holding up the bike wheel, each of those are individual pieces. They attach to the post, and then you can separate them out. The most important part, in my opinion, are those 2 posts. For this vehicle currently, so be it the R3 or the R2, these are still very much prototypes. They haven't finalized the design in any shape or form. The way that these are getting power as of this moment in time is just through some pogo pins. And that's it. So we're dealing with very low voltage. There's not like a high voltage system going through these. They stick into the vehicle approximately 8 to 10 inches is what they were telling me, and they latch into place. So they actually have a little latching mechanism. From the sound of it, it looks like they might have or as close as you can be finalized with the latching system based on what they were kind of telling me. I never got a good shot of the latching mechanism. All we know is it kind of like you stick it in, you fold like a lever back, and then it latches itself in, and then it's in place.
I do hope that it uses the gear guard cable latch in the R1T bed to actually lock to the vehicle. Because if it's a simple latch that you can press a button and walk away with it, that'd be interesting. But. Yeah,
exactly. My thought process, since it wasn't actually finalized, I kept telling them, right now, one of the biggest things that Rivian's lacking is aftermarket support, accessory support, especially when you come along to like things like this awesome idea, the accessory ports. We, as a aftermarket community, we need access to like schematics and power from these things, and that's what I would like to see them do. Like, sell us the posts, but let us attach things to it. Let us have like maybe 120 volts off of that. Like, is there a way that you can run that way? We can easily design a camp kitchen if they don't come up with one, right? Or we make something that we can just put in the back and plug in there. Making sure that we have access to adding things of our own volition to these posts. Like, that's where they need to go with it. Like, they got to give aftermarket an opportunity to have some fun with these accessories. And by the sound of it, Rivian said a lot of the right things there while we were at the event, saying, yes, they want to open it up to aftermarket to help, create this kind of accessory market availability right off the bat. But we need to see it happen. One of the benefits of the Ford Bronco is they brought in a ton of aftermarket companies before the vehicle was out, so that as soon as the vehicle was available at market, you had a ton of accessories ready to go as soon as you bought it. And I think Rivian needs to lean in on this, especially when we get into R2, R3, R3X, to do that. Now, to be fair, all of this is in the conceptual stages, but because it is in the conceptual stages, get us to a point where the aftermarket community can really latch onto it for, see what I did there? Wow. No, but really try to jump into it. To really kind of push it forward, because I think the accessory ports is a fantastic idea and really will differentiate Rivian from a lot of other makers out there, with how if they build it right, you could do so many cool things. Like my head's been going nuts since this event of all the things I want to make around that. And I really want them to provide the post. Like I don't need to go into the vehicle with the post if they're providing it and saying, here's power, here's data, go nuts. You know, one thing that I was a little disappointed to hear, because it was really cool idea, on R2 and R3 at the event, the cargo bar holders on top of the vehicle were powered, which is a really cool idea. But we found out that that's not going to carry over to production vehicle due to cost. Also, the idea of having a big tub full of water on top with electricity doesn't sound like the best idea either, which is kind of disappointing. But it is a very cool idea. I did ask them, well, if that's the case, the treehouse, how are you going to run power to the treehouse? And they couldn't give me a good answer to that one, which makes me disappointed that they hadn't thought about that. Because if they had already been thinking about... Yeah, and it needs to be a cable, but the problem is it 120? And if there's 120, then that means you're plugging it inside the vehicle. So if you're plugging it inside the vehicle, how are you actually routing that cable? So there needs to be a proper way of routing that cable with that while staying weather tight. Two, what makes much more sense to me is a way of attaching it to the NACS port. We're all assuming that this is going to be V2X capable. So like we should be able to have a way of getting that voltage to the tent, maybe through some, you're gonna have to drop the voltage significantly, but there should be a way to kind of handle that. And then just kind of, basically I want to see these things start lining up. Like the ideas are awesome, but they've come up with these accessory ideas before and they've dropped the ball. And don't get me wrong, there's certain things that they've dropped the ball that have created my business, and I'm not going to complain about that. But I would like to see them moving forward with some of these really great ideas. The accessory port being one of them. Like they're advertising it big time. I want to see this actually properly supported. They need to make sure that it has power, make sure that it's strong, make sure that we have access to the white papers of how to design around it as well. So sorry, but that's a long speech by me.
No, you're good. You're good. I appreciate you. So let me show you here what we've got working with. So this is the camp kitchen that sits, again, using those ports, the accessory ports back here. You've got what looks to be a nice little storage area. You've got a cooktop. Again, very, very sparse on details, but that's what we got there. This is a look at the Rivian treehouse, which we'll show you in a second. Again, showing you the accessory ports, the bike mounts. This is inside the treehouse, and then here it is. Right, so here you've got a combination of the camp kitchen, the hanging lights that they've got here with the treehouse on top of an R2, which is very, very cool, and a ladder coming down from it. So again, just very cool accessories. I want to show you when we went to the actual event, they had the R3X laid out there with a bunch of accessories. So let me show you what that looks like. I took
And while you're pulling that up, in the last photo you showed, it had a good image of the camp kitchen in the back. And while I think it's an interesting position to place it, if you're going camping in that kind of situation, you're probably having gear in the back, and it looked like from the distance you're not going to be opening up the back of that vehicle. So maybe the window rolling down helps, but if you can't fully open up the hatch while you have a kitchen or a box in place, I think that would be a big miss in terms of actually a gear adventure focused company.
Right. So here you've got the treehouse on top of the R3X, and as you can see here on the left side, this is a plexiglass top that once folded in, this is actually plastic or whatnot, and it actually folds into place, and it just kind of sits on top of the cargo bars, which is kind of neat. Really, really, really cool there to see this.
The design on this is perfect. Like I really liked this design. David, you have a pop-up camper tent on yours, and in comparison to yours, what did you think of that design?
Yeah, I won't plug the name that I have, but I have a inflatable rooftop tent. I used to have a variant of kind of the iCamper, which again, I don't own that one, so I'm not plugging it. But this is kind of interesting to me because the problem with most hard shell rooftop tents is that they only open up to about here, maybe a little bit wider. And so when you're inside, it's still a little bit closed in, and that top is solid on every single one of them. It's not see through. But on Rivian's version here, it opens up past 90 degrees. So the interior feels quite a bit more open. And by having that top be potentially plexiglass, like is shown here, that'll make it feel really light and airy. One thing that I guess, two concerns that I have for this, my biggest concerns is privacy. I hope they have some sort of curtain on the interior to make that close all the way around. And then being in Seattle, I did not see any sort of rain protection. That was mesh material on the top. There were roll-up windows, but you want the mesh to be inside of that window roll-up, not allow the rain to go through that. So I hope they have some sort of rain solution and aren't California designing that tent. Yeah.
The movie
Oh, and
projector
then the
was cool.
opening on this tent, sorry, is very, very nice compared to a lot of the rooftop tents, especially the hard shell ones. I mean, I'm 6'1", and getting in the opening of some of those tents, you're like crawling in sideways, especially when it's wet and you're crawling out of it. You have to like maneuver your body just a little bit. And this looked really big and open, and the sides, the door, instead of, unzipping and flopping up, it almost had like, I don't know if it was accordion doors that opened to the side or something like that. But I thought it felt, again, just much easier to access than other options.
Yeah, here's this. They had the vehicles out at the normal factory there, so you can see a little bit closer look at the inside of this camping. And like you said, David, the top there definitely just looks mesh. So that won't be very convenient if it rains or snows or whatever it is that you want to do. But boy, howdy, does it look cool. And here earlier, we talked about the sliding back floor. Here you go. Here's a look at it of that sliding out as an example. So that's really
It's
cool.
just manual. It's not powered or anything.
Yeah. Here's a look at that hand warmer USB thing once more. Here, we didn't talk too much about this, but the fact that you can open the R3 hatch kind of halfway. I forgot what they called this. They had a name for it. But yeah, you can either open the full or you can open this. And then this is adjustable. So if you have longer items like surfboards or whatnot, you can have it, have the window open based on the whatever you have back there, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so this was just some additional photos here that this person was able to take, and some video showing just the cars. I feel like in better lighting because it was outside, and you get to see it out there. And here you got, again, the treehouse tent on the R3X. I just noticed that the R3 has frameless windows, frameless doors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice. Good or bad, depending.
Oh, and the R3X has tow hooks on the front. The standard R3 in its current form does not.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty nice looking setup right there. Something really cool. Well, we won't look at that. This was cool. A projector in the treehouse.
Yeah.
They didn't show us that, but that's really neat. I don't know how this works. I don't know if the treehouse has like a screen you can bring down and then you can just project to it, or if it has a rear project. I don't know. We don't have information.
I'm going to let you know, as a person that likes to frequent national parks, I am not a fan. I was never a fan of the camp speaker, and I'm not a fan of the projector. I don't think that's the right the right thing to project to those people that are going to be adventuring in the wild. I don't know. That's just me. When I go
extremely
camping,
bougie.
Right? Yeah.
It's the wrong thing. I don't know. It's not the right thing to project to everyone. Is it kind of cool? Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But when I go out camping, I want to experience the outdoors. I don't want to experience Star Wars, though it might be kind of cool too.
Actually, so this person took a photo. Here it is. It's a here's a projector mounted right there.
Nice.
So it's a rear projector projecting on the screen there. So clearly designed for viewing from the outside.
Mhm.
Again, whether that makes it to production, who the heck knows? But
There was a patent on the R1T that had
Yep.
some sort of projector system that came out, and that never seemed practical to me. But to this, to add a little projector up top makes more sense.
Yeah. So, but all right. Well, we are an hour and 40 minutes here. That's a lot. Any final thoughts on the event, R2, R3, R3X, the future?
R3X cannot get here soon enough.
Yeah, I gotta head out, but yeah, just excited. Overall excitement levels are back for Rivian. We had some, sad past few months of news of doom and gloom, and I think this is the reinvigoration of the company that it so needed, a lot. Well,
I've seen a lot of positive news stories, and that's very exciting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody so much for joining, and
Awesome
maybe
chatting.
we'll do this again in the future. Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
everybody, for watching. Ciao.
Take care.
Bye.